welcome to the Blues Hub postgame show / Blues Hub weekly show. I'm your host, Brooke Grimsley, alongside former Blues forward and Stanley Cup champion Jamal Mayers. Jamal, thank you so much for joining us again. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great because we're talking about 6 straight wins tonight. And the Blues Hub postgame show is presented by Hot Shots. As you saw, St. Louis is home for all the games all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshots.net. For all those who are coming in, make sure you like and subscribe this YouTube channel and follow us on social media for updates. We'll be here daily providing all the coverage for all your favorite local teams like the Blues. So, Jamal, as we just talked about there, 6 straight wins for the Blues. This one tonight, what an exciting one, Jamal. Blues win 4-1 over the Preds for their 6th straight victory. Things are always really chippy between the Blues and the Predators, right?
Yeah, I think that's just natural with a division rival. And the fact that the Preds have had a frustrating season, I think, fed into it a little bit. And it's not uncommon for it to get a little bit chippy at the end. I thought the refs did a good job of keeping the guys safe for the most part. And really liked the way the Blues. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't Picasso, but finding ways to win these important games is really important, and they're doing it at the right time.
Now, Jamal, for the people who are coming in, because I saw it all over social media, and I'm sure that you've seen it too, already people talking about the officiating tonight. You mentioned towards the end there, you had Zachary Bolduc with a game misconduct at the end there and a 5-minute major. What did you think of that call? Luckily, it kind of worked out with the hockey gods there.
Yeah, I think that was maybe a little bit overzealous. I think, to me, it didn't get to the level of what they called. I thought, you know what, the second cross check probably wasn't necessary, but it was on the pants. It wasn't like he got him in the ribs. The player wasn't injured. Um, I thought they would take all those factors into consideration. Maybe a double minor at the very most, but I personally like the response from Bolduc. He thought in it, you could see it on the replay that it wasn't. He thought that it was a player stuck his leg out against their best player. So the response was appropriate, but in hindsight, he didn't get him. So, but I think as a teammate and as a fan, you're happy that you've got guys stepping up for each other. I do think the referees got it wrong in regard to, calling it what they did.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting there because when you saw the slow-mo, you mentioned it wasn't as bad as you thought. You get really worried about when you see Robert Thomas being involved there at the end that it would be a lot worse in that situation. The replay showed otherwise. But what I noticed was just the amount of guys, including Bolduc, who were going up, standing up for Robert Thomas, which is what you want to see from all your guys.
Yeah, you hear it a lot in hockey, and a lot of times phrases have meaning and sometimes they don't. But you hear about team toughness, and that's what team toughness is. It has nothing to do with fighting. It means coming together. Um, I could do personally without a lot of the scrums that the Preds created in the last 10 minutes. Like, if you wanted to play hard, you had 50 minutes to do it. If you wanted to do something, you had 50 minutes to do it, but you chose to, be a tough guy and act like you wanted to create a scrum in the last 6 minutes. I always found that annoying. Um, but you know what? At the end of the day, it's a frustrated team trying to make a point to their team and to their organization that they care. But I like the way the Blues kept together, stuck together, showed that team toughness, and really those are the penalties that you're happy to kill. And I can assure you of this: as soon as those guys got back in the room, they were, giving Bolduc a pound, a hug, or whatever it may be, and letting him know that he did the right thing.
And make sure you get your comments in and questions for Jamal, anything that you have for tonight or anything that you saw this week for the Blues. As we mentioned, 6 straight wins, a big win over the Predators, 4-1 tonight. Josh Case says, find the refs. And I know that there was some frustrating moments. We talked about Bolduc there in that call. You mentioned could have been something a little different there, but still, you also had that Robert Thomas could have been goal at the start of the third period.
Yeah, I mean, you got those opportunities that, sometimes those things go your way, sometimes they don't. But they're part of being a resilient group and finding a way to win is exactly what they did. I think that having your power play step up, especially when they put a young guy on the ice and he was able to make a big play. I think that those are important moments, and I think that taking advantage of those opportunities, understanding the time, the score, and the situation, and the gravity of what's at stake. I think that Monty does a great job of empowering his players and putting them in a position to succeed. And this is a team that you can see is playing with a ton of confidence. And when you're doing that, it makes it fun to come to the rink.
And we'll talk about Dalibor Dvorsky here in a minute. You mentioned that young guy getting his NHL debut. That was exciting to see. I want to go back first, though, to two players that just continue to have great games. Robert Thomas, what he was doing tonight, 10th career 3-assist game for Robert Thomas, and Jordan Kyrou with 3 straight seasons now with 30-plus goals and 30-plus assists. How big have those guys been here lately?
Oh, just massive. And I think that there's a lot of questions in regard to their leadership and what they provide. And I think that spreading out the offense among a few different lines has been a very good and positive for both of those guys. And you think about Kyrie now has 6 goals and 5 assists in the last 6 games at the most critical points. And it's one thing to score 30 goals when you get your 4 goals when it doesn't matter. He's got my respect because he's doing it when they need him the most. And that means a lot because that's transferable, in my opinion, to what the playoffs is going to require of him. So this is a really good step for him positively in his career. This is going about it and getting to 30. It's different than for me in years past. He's playing the right way. He's contributing offensively. Robert Thomas is emerging as obviously he's their best player, but just the consistency of his game, the real smart plays that he makes all over the ice, the awareness that he has, and just he plays in all situations. So really impressive to see how well those two have played.
And we're getting some questions in now about Dalibor Dvorsky, obviously making his NHL debut tonight. What did you see from him, Jamal?
Oh, you know what? You didn't see him create much offensively 5-on-5, and I think that's okay. I think you're playing your first game. You're kind of like a deer in headlights. Takes a little bit while for things to settle down. I thought it was a brilliant move by Monty to put him in a position where he could have success, which was on the power play. He's certainly done that in the minors. I believe has 10 power play goals already this season, and he made a real subtle, smart play, understanding where the release points as he was getting pressured off a bobbling puck on the half wall, bumped it to the bumper in the middle of the ice. Doesn't get an assist. Unfortunately, they called it an assist on the at the rink at Enterprise. He didn't get an assist, but he certainly, and everybody on the ice, everybody in that locker room knows that he made a fantastic play on the half wall to make that play to the middle of the ice that allowed that play to happen. So he didn't get an assist, but he made the play for it to happen.
Yeah, I like that moment. Well, probably didn't like it too much for Dvorsky, but they like kind of panned to him on the bench, and he even looked confused for a moment there. He's like, "Wait a minute, no, I don't think that happened for me just yet." We have a comment from Pee Wee Herman's Bowtie, very interesting name
All
there.
right.
Remember when people wanted to run Kyrou out of town? What have you seen growth-wise from Jordan Kyrou, especially going this season? I just see a difference, a huge difference, not only on the ice, but especially it just seems almost like maturity-wise too, out of Kyrou.
Yeah, yeah, and that's normal. I think that does he have his every player has their deficiencies and their warts, if you will. And is Kyrou sometimes not the best defensive forward? Yeah, that's true. But do you want him to have breakaways? Do you want him to create rush chances? Then he's gonna have to leave the zone early at times. And I think picking those spots, picking those opportunities, understanding when, giving him the grace to make those decisions and not really, beating up on him for making mistakes. All you really want out of your skilled players is effort. Effort when you turn it over, effort when you make a mistake. You can live with those mistakes. And you know what? At the end of the day, you want him creating, you want him trying things. And yes, do you want him turning pucks over? No. Do you want him understanding the time, who's on the ice, the score, the situation? I think that's one thing he's taken a massive leap in, and it's taken time. I think the recognition of what play is appropriate at what time. I think he's made great strides in that regard, and I think having an offensive coach like Monty has helped him find that way to have that correct balance in his game that doesn't hurt the team, but it still allows him to be and trust his offensive instincts mostly.
What about Justin Falk tonight? 2 points for him.
Yeah, I think that's a guy you looked at who's going to shoulder the load with Parenko, going down offensively, who's going to step up. and you've seen his game elevate. You've seen him be able to show, okay, hold on a second. I was an offensive guy. I was, asked to do a lot of these things. And I think that you're seeing him being able to do some of that right now. And I think that's just his instincts. And he saw him on his goal. He started at the goal line. And Jake Neighbors made a fantastic play on the entry, but that play doesn't happen if he doesn't get up the ice. So credit to Falk for getting up the ice, creating that opportunity, and scoring a really big goal. Because in my opinion, the momentum had swung in Nashville's favor in that third period, and that was a really big goal on his part.
From Pee Wee Herman's bow tie. Once again, Bennington, once again, showing tonight that he is a world class goalie, especially. I know that Ryan O'Reilly was testing him at the end there, but I mean, Jordan Bennington has been huge for this team, especially here lately. So is Hofer.
Yeah, I think that they're not in this position without both of those goaltenders. And I think that, you're seeing the best of Binner. You're seeing playoff Binner now because they've had to play that type of hockey for the last few weeks. And I think that it's bringing out the best in him and the focus that he's had, the attention to detail he's had, the rebound control, the concentration has been fantastic, and the timely saves. You can't overstate that enough. So his ability to dial it in, and what does that do for a group? It gives the group confidence. You can see the bench, you can see the players. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to give up opportunities, but when you have someone playing as well as Benner back there, it allows you to play free and not be nervous about making a mistake.
Jamal, it was just a few weeks ago. I know it's just been a whirlwind when we're talking about these 6 straight wins for the Blues, but obviously they've been the hottest team since the Four Nations break. And we're talking about Bennington kind of carrying that energy back into these recent games too. And now they've been able to secure a wild card spot and create some distance here, especially with this win tonight. What have you noticed has just really changed from this group over the course since that Four Nations break? I mean, obviously you have Monty coming in. That kind of took some time for him to get his game going, but you have the veterans who have really just taken things over and the young players stepping up. It's like a perfect storm right now with this group.
Yeah, I think you said it. I think that it's an equal balance of the veterans continuing to do what they were doing, taking on more ownership. But I think Monty's done a fantastic job, in my opinion, of allowing the grace of the younger players to come in and take ownership of that second wave of leadership, that second wave of where our offense is going to come from, and that second wave of guys like Bolduc of stepping up and finding a way to contribute offensively and being a part of it, not just being happy to be here. And I think that playing those important types of games has really, it could have gone either way. It could have really exposed what was wrong with this group, or it could really highlight there's some real positive pieces here. And in hindsight, maybe they could have added a piece or two at the deadline, but they stood pat, which was their decision. And I think honestly that gave them a vote of confidence that the organization believed in the group, and they were playing well enough for them to not dismantle it. And now I think they feel a responsibility to finish the job. It's one thing to go on a run for a few weeks, but if they don't make the playoffs, then what was all this for? So I think that they want to finish it. They want to get to that point where they make the playoffs and secure a spot, and they realize that the job's not done and they got some work to do. But it's fun to come to the rink playing meaningful hockey this time of the year, and I think they're really enjoying that part of it.
And you know Monty, and I'm sure that you've heard many stories about his kind of coaching style and how he's able to get the most out of these players. It seems like he's able to really get the most out of the veterans, as you mentioned, but also the younger guys. How do you think that he is able to do that?
Honestly, I think it's sometimes as simple as a tiny conversation in the morning skate when you're skating around, and giving a younger player like Bolduc the assurance that it's okay to shoot the puck. You're a shooter. Keep shooting the puck. Because sometimes as a young guy, you want to defer. Sometimes as a young guy, you're not sure. You don't want to upset the older guys, and a lot of it is comfort. A lot of it is where are they mentally and how do they feel about their place on the team. And a coach can go a long way in that conversation, and those tiny conversations are very meaningful for younger players to let them know that they do mean a lot, that they're gonna need them to contribute offensively. And I think you're seeing the best out of these younger players, and it's only gonna help the team because they're gonna need younger players taking ownership of this, and they have seen it happen, and you've seen it happen on the back end as well. Other guys stepping up, and guys coming in and assuming and shouldering the load of a loss as great as Pareko.
We've talked about the improvements that we've seen from Jordan Kyrou with him having 30 plus goals and 30 plus assists in 3 straight seasons, picking up his 30th of the season tonight. But that connection with Jordan Kyrou and Dylan Holloway has been really special to watch too. What have you seen there with those two?
I think they both love to play with pace. I think they both understand, okay, how can we turn that rush chance opportunities into retrievals and second chance opportunities? They've been, I think they do, and I wouldn't be surprised if they watch video together and communicate and watch and understand where they would like each other to be in support situations. And I think that when you do that, you get to play freely. And when you play freely, you can just trust your instincts. And because of that, they're they're just playing. They're creating opportunities. They're using their speed. They're pushing the pace offensively. They're connected in the offensive zone, meaning they're, when they need to be, when there's pressure on the puck carrier in the corner, they're nice and close for a little 5 foot play or 6 foot pass. And I think that their quickness, I think they enjoy playing off of each other because they both like to play with pace. And they're probably not too many players on the team that can play as fast as they can. So I'm sure they're like, hey, let's make this work together so we can stay together.
Now, there have been a lot of wins, obviously, for the Blues here recently, and a lot of guys who were a part of those key wins. But who is your big player of the week, Jamal?
Oh, it's got to go with Jordan Kyrou, and honorable mention obviously to Thomas. But Kyrou has really stepped up, and I know it's a larger sample size than the week, but the last 6 games, 6 goals, 5 assists, 11 points, like that is big time rarefied air. So he's not only the one of the best players in the for the Blues, but in the entire National Hockey League for these last few weeks. So I got to give it to Jordan.
I think that's a safe bet there. And also, now looking at the wild card spot, obviously, we talked about the Blues holding on to that, creating a little bit of distance, but how do they keep this playoff spot, Jamal?
Well, right now they've got the Calgary Flames that are behind them with 69 games. They've got 3 games at hand, and they're 4 points behind. And sometimes you can overstate that. All you can control as a group is winning the games in front of you. And that should be the singular focus for this group. Regardless of what Calgary does, if they continue to win, they're not going to catch them. So I think that just taking it one game at a time, um, getting the rest necessary, refueling, treating yourself and taking care of yourself is very important. Having that downtime away from the rink when it's there, and then amping it back up with energy because it doesn't get much easier. You got to go back. I believe their next game is in Nashville on Thursday. It's not going to be easy. The emotions were high at the end of this game. The first 10 minutes of the game are going to be crucial. That building can get loud, so they're going to have a good start, and I'm sure Monty will have them ready to go.
For all the people who are coming in right now, make sure that you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get updates about when we have these post-game shows or when any big news breaks. Ace Rob says, I can't believe how good Nathan Walker has been the last month. Dude plays so heavy for a smaller guy. He is a smaller guy, but he doesn't act like it on the ice. We've discussed that before, but Nathan Walker, of course, in this game, making his presence known once again.
Yeah, I think that he understands what his role is. He understands what he has to do out there to keep himself in the lineup, to change momentum, to affect the game. And I think that, he's a little bit of a disruptor and kind of reminds me of Tyson Nash, but a little bit more skill. No offense, Nasher. But good on him. He steps up at the right moments. He understands his role, does it to a T, and certainly been a very important piece to this group in the last few weeks.
Now going from talking about a smaller guy to a bigger guy, Colton Pareko, we did have a great update this week. Montgomery saying that he thinks that Colton Pareko will be ready to go before that 6-week timeline, possibly. And I know on picture day, maybe everybody's just reading a little bit too much into this, but I think a lot of people were excited that Colton Pareko was out on the ice and skates for picture day. How important will that be to get Pareko back prior to the season ending, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that honestly, they're going to need him back once the playoffs start, but they're winning hockey games without him. So uh, there's no reason really for him to rush. And I think that the important part for him, the pressure comes when you're injured, quite frankly, is when the team isn't playing well. when the team's playing well, it's palatable. You can kind of understand. You can kind of be patient with yourself, and that's what he should do. He should, when when it's possible for him to come back, I can assure you he's going to come back a day earlier than is necessary. That's just the way he's wired. But the good thing is, team's playing well, and there's really no rush for him to come back.
Now, looking at the games for this week, we have the Canadians and we have the Predators again, as you mentioned, on Thursday, which should be another exciting one. And then you have the Avs. What do you want to see from the Blues this coming week?
Just taking it one game at a time. Man. Don't look too far ahead. Don't think about the fact that you got to play the Avs. Don't think about the fact that you got to play this team. They're playing well. Stay in the moment. That's the number one advice I can give them. Enjoy it. You guys are playing well. There's no reason to reinvent anything. You have a formula that's working. You're not spending much time in the defensive zone. You're communicating extremely well. You're closing quickly. Your bump passes to exit the zone are there. Be a little bit more intentional when the moments go away from you about getting pucks to the net, funneling them to the net. That kind of got away from them in the beginning of the third period. But they're finding ways to win, and that's what good teams do.
And Jamal, one more question for you before we get to Mike Meyer for the prospect report. I wanted to ask you about this weekend. Obviously, a very emotional weekend for the hometown hero, Patrick Maroon. He announced that he will be retiring at the end of the season, playing for the Chicago Blackhawks. What a career it has been for Pat Maroon. I mean, over 800 career games, 3 Stanley Cups, and of course, being the hometown hero here in St. Louis.
Yeah, you talk about someone who defied all the odds and proved a lot of people wrong, and quite frankly, the last 5 years squeezed all the juice out of that lemon. You're certainly happy for a player that was able to have the success that he's had. From the fact when he was in Edmonton and he thought his career was over, and then ended up being able to come home and play for the Blues and win a cup and be a huge part of their success, and then continue on with his career and win a couple more cups after that. Seemed like he had the hot hand wherever he was going. So a remarkable career for a guy who's a hometown kid, and pretty special and pretty cool that he was able to celebrate it here, one of the last games of his career, playing here in his hometown in St. Louis.
Sandwich Man says, I hope Maroon finds himself being a part of the Blues in some way after this season. Do you think the Blues might sign him to a one-day contract where he can retire a Blue?
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. We'll see.
All right. Thank you so much, Jamal. And now we're going to welcome in Mike Meyer for our prospect report. Mike, a lot to talk about on the prospect side, especially with Jimmy Snuggerud. And here comes Mike in right now. A lot of exciting stuff to talk about. First, let's start with Jimmy Snuggerud, who was recently named a Hopi Baker Award finalist. And he's gearing up for a big game this week when Minnesota takes on UMass on Thursday in the first round of the NCAA tournament. We've been waiting for this. We've been waiting for the NCAA tournament for Jimmy Snuggerud. What should we expect in this matchup?
Yeah, this is going to be a big one. They announced it here yesterday. They're going to be playing on ESPN2, 7:30 Central. This is absolutely, like you said, it's a big one. It's one loss in this tournament, and their season's done. I'm really hoping we start to be able to see a little bit more goal production here out of Jimmy Snuggerud, but you've really started to be able to see more and more of his two-way play here as the season has progressed. And so, he's started to be able to see more and more points here up on the score sheet. And the thing that I like to see here as well, he's also finding himself more in the assist column here at that point. And so it's not necessarily just the guy who can be able to put the puck in the back of the net, but he's a guy who can be able to find more here in the offensive zone. So in order for him to be able to find his way to the Frozen Four, though, they're going to have to beat UMass and then the winner here of Western Michigan and Minnesota State. And so if they are the victor here of these two games, Snuggerud's going to head to St. Louis, hopefully be able to play here then again here in the Frozen Four. But the big thing here is Blues have until August 15th of next year. And so should Snuggerud fail to be able to reach that point here in his career, he could have to be able to run it back one more time, which is not what Blues fans are wanting. And I get it. I love his dedication, but boy, we can go through this here for one more season.
No. And Jamal, go ahead and weigh in, because I think you might have some feelings about what teams will be doing there.
I'm just saying, Western Michigan, number 3 in the country. They won the NCHC regular season, won the NCHC last night in double overtime. So fingers crossed that they make their way to St. Louis.
Mike, I want to go back to what you just said there, because I think that might freak out some Blues fans a little bit. As we know, a lot of people were hoping to see, including the Blues, Jimmy Snuggerud last season. The Blues were hoping to give him that opportunity, but he really felt like he had unfinished business. He wanted to get that national championship. You really think he could run it back with Minnesota if they don't accomplish that again?
I wouldn't be surprised. That's a tale of two Snuggeruds here almost. You want the guy who is passionate, determined, built to bring another championship here back to Minnesota. And I absolutely love that. I love that in his character, but I do think that he's ready to be able to move on. He's accomplished really everything that he's able to accomplish here so far at the University of Minnesota, minus getting the championship. And so I do think he's going to be ready to move on and be able to move on here to the NHL, and the Blues are ready to welcome him with open arms.
Mike, I also wanted to ask you about Dalibor Dvorsky, because you have an article out about him right now on sportshubstl.com. So everybody who is watching right now, make sure that you are liked and subscribed, and make sure you sign up for that newsletter so that you can see some of Mike's work. But you have an article out about Dalibor Dvorsky, so I want to get your take on him getting this call up and his NHL debut. What have you seen from him here recently leading up to this big moment where he gets his NHL debut?
Well, first of all, I will say it's so fun to be able to see a prospect that you've covered here online here for so long. And it's like, you're seeing a kid, that you or anything else here to this extent, that you've covered them and you're like, oh, they're all grown up. This is great. But he's been hot. He's been hot coming into this. He was riding a 4-game point streak, coming here in with 2 goals, 2 assists here in the last 4 games, 6 points in his last 6 games. Jamal, you alluded here to this earlier, Monty with a bold choice to be able to put him out here into the power play. I think he showed some really, really good offensive prowess here early on, just ready to be able to try and be able to just put himself right into the front of the net. You saw him, he's going to be hovering around his office here right and around the face-off dot. And he's lethal from his spot, lethal one-timer and a lethal release. I really like what we're seeing here so far here from him. Only 10.5 minutes here of ice time, but for your offensive debut, I don't know if there's really much more that you could really have expected from him in such a limited amount of ice time in a very chippy game. I do like Monty's decision. Hey, go serve the time here in the penalty box. It's getting really chippy, and we're just going to have you, try to stay out of this. So I really like what we're seeing here out of him, and the sky's really only going to be upward here for him moving forward.
Who else are you watching right now amongst the Blues prospects?
Boy, this is such a fun time, because as we are talking here about playoff push here in the NHL, regular season here has concluded for the NCAA, the CHL. So everybody here in North America is gearing up here for postseason play. And so right now, you've got 8 players between the NCAA and the CHL, the Canadian Hockey League, who are getting ready to go here into the postseason. Tomas Mercic, Yuri Pekarczyk, Adam Yeko, all these guys, these are top names here that we were able to follow here throughout the entire season, who have really solidified themselves as top Blues offensive point producers here throughout the season. These guys are all going to be making their way here into the postseason, looking to be able to get the championship. What's really going to be interesting here, though, is that you've got guys here in Yuri Pekarczyk with the Moncton Wildcats, Antoine Dorian with the Quebec Remparts opening up here in the opening round, Adam Yeko and the Edmonton Oil Kings, and of course Tomas Mercic here with Prince Albert Raiders. They're all facing off here against one another here in the opening rounds here of the CHL. So I think if Pekarczyk and Mercic can be able to continue their offensive ways, these guys are going to be very, very dangerous here, and hopefully be able to bring a championship home to their squads here as well.
Thank you so much, Mike. And once again, you can find all of Mike's work over on sportshubstl.com. And thank you so much, Jamal and Mike, for joining us tonight. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Blues Hub post-game/Blues weekly show. We will see you guys next week. And make sure, as Ace said, I get the newsletter. It's free and it's awesome. So you heard it there from Ace Rob. Come and join us on the newsletter, because it's free, it's awesome, as he mentioned, and you can see a lot of Mike's work there too. So thank you all for joining us tonight for our Blues Hub post-game show.